Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another video. This is part 3 in my ongoing series of videos about storytelling cliches, in which I'm trying to gather together all these tropes, all these things that we've seen in comics or in movies, animated films, things that have been done before. Some might say they've been done to death, but I believe that it may be possible to still use these ideas. You just have to be aware that they are cliches, some of them, and that you may need to try to freshen it up somehow before you include it in your story. I'm going to do a mix of ideas that came from my viewers, most of those taken from the last video that I did, and I will link to both the first and second video in my, in the description below, so that if you want to catch up on this series. So the first one does come from one of my viewers. This is going to be a mix of viewer comments and then my own ideas together in this video. This one first comes from Little One 147. In a dance movie, about a day before the big dance, the characters get in a fight and one of them splits up. Then within minutes, or even during the dance, that character shows up just in time. So that is a great one. We've all seen it before. In dance movies, but I think also in any kind of competitive film. It could be in like a sports movie, maybe, where there's been some sort of acrimonious split. And it does seem to me that it's during that climactic dance or during the big sporting event, the character that you thought had left comes back just when they need them most. So yeah, we've seen it done a million times. It's clearly intended to increase the drama, to get the audience worried that they're going to lose the competition because this key person is not there, and then, oh, what a relief. Except it's not a relief if we all saw it coming a mile away. So I don't know how you freshen that one up, but certainly you need to be aware it's been done before and the audience may see it coming. I'm doing just a drawing of a little chibi character from my book of that name, Chibi. And it has nothing to do with cliches. I don't know, is the rock chibi character a cliche? Could be. Let me know if you believe it is. But I'm just going to draw this to give you something to look at as we continue going through these different storytelling cliches. This one, number 2, from Marky Crillington. Very familiar name there. The main character enters a dark room that is presumably empty, but when they switch on the lights, they find that the bad guy has been sitting there in a chair, usually with a gun in hand, calmly waiting for them. I bet you're all familiar with that one. I've seen it done a bunch of times. And yeah, I think, again, these things become cliches because they work, they're effective. There is something dramatic about a character entering a room that you just assume is empty, and then find that someone else is already there waiting for them. It sort of gives you a momentary excited feeling of, oh wow, they pulled off a little surprise on me. And again, the problem is if it's been done a million times, it isn't a surprise anymore. Although I think I still sort of fall for this one periodically. Something about the dark room and coming home late at night or whatever, you just figure no one else is there, and then it kind of gets me every time, that one. Let's move on to the next suggestion from Vanessa C. A storytelling cliche that I actually really love is one where on a pirate ship the main character ends up riling up / angering the crew, and as everyone is getting ready for a brawl, a sound rings out, a shout or a gunshot, and then all you hear is boots approaching and the crowd slowly parts to reveal the captain. I love the detail of this. Vanessa seems very clear of every little beat in this cliche. And indeed, once she describes it, I'm like, yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that moment. It's sort of, you need a big dramatic entrance for the powerful captain character, and it seems to me the key element is that you create a chaotic scene of noise, and then this character comes in and silences the noise. And it's a way of, I think, cueing how much respect that character has from all of the underlings. and presumably our main character. And, you know, just a dramatic entrance. People like to give an important character a dramatic entrance. But it's funny, as Vanessa described the various moments of that scene and the boots approaching and all of that, it's like, yeah, I do feel like I've seen that before. Not that I've even seen that many pirate movies, but it does sound awfully familiar, doesn't it? Let's move on to number 4. This one from markcrilley. Must be coming to us from Italy, this one. In a police drama, the police chief character always takes the protagonist detective off the case at some point, or even has them hand in their badge, telling them that they've blown it, or they're getting too personally involved, etc. Then the detective continues pursuing the case in their spare time. This one is absolutely a cliche. It feels like it became a requirement at a certain point in any sort of detective story. You always have the chief who really loves the character at heart, but no, unfortunately, they've gone too far, and we have to take you off the case or even have you fork over your badge. This one I feel, has kind of reached the level of parody almost. I'm sure anytime you do a parody of a cop film, you're going to have that scene. And I suppose it can still be done in an effective way, but boy, you got to be keenly aware of how often audiences have seen this one and come up with your distinctive variation on it. Let's move on to number 5. This one from Mandy Mick, or Mandy McKK. I'm not sure how I should be saying that name. Character. I wouldn't ever do that thing you want me to do. Cut to the character doing that thing. This is a thing we see a lot in comedies, I think, where I have a friend named Dennis Moylan who is very good at observing these types of cliches, and he always used to say, the person would say, I don't want to marry her. I don't. And then they cut to, I do. Da, 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 da. So they always have the person claiming that they are never going to do this thing, and then we do a smash cut immediately to the scene in which they are undercutting themselves by having caved and given in to do the thing they claimed they were never going to do. I think in a comedy that one still works, especially if that one has been done a lot, but you can still catch the audience off guard because you're ending a scene at a moment when they don't expect it to end. Usually like right in the middle of a piece of dialogue, and then you suddenly jump. So you can still maybe catch the audience off guard, but I think a lot of these things, the reaction of the audience is like, oh yeah, okay, right, I see what you did there, that kind of a reaction. That one, I suppose, seems to me you can still get some mileage out of that one. I'm going to take a moment here in the middle of the video to sort of add color, catch up, get a little further along with this drawing, and then we will be back with numbers 6 through 10. All right, well, I think we've got enough of it done now that I can get back to our little countdown. Number 6 here from Marcus van Krilltwerp. Is that maybe a Dutch name? I'm not familiar with it. The character A. When character A is pointing a gun at character B, character B will appear terrified that they are about to die, but when character A pulls the trigger, they find that the gun has no ammo. Then character B smiles, revealing that they are holding all the bullets in one of their hands. Certainly we've seen this one before. What's interesting is the sort of Academy Award-winning performance of fear that the character goes to all the trouble of producing when the gun is pointed at them, so that the person who wants to shoot them is thoroughly fooled, although more likely it is the audience that they're trying to fool. And then moments later, they're smiling and laughing, and everything's fine because I took all the bullets out of that gun. It has been done again and again. That one probably goes back to the silent era before they finally, turned it into a standard procedure type of thing that we are probably not so surprised by anymore, frankly, but who knows? You might be able to still pull off a little twist on that storytelling cliche. This one, number 7, from Peg Oat. Skeptical people and critical thinkers are always portrayed in a bad light. Those who choose to believe some nonsense are the ones who are rewarded in the end. This one is interesting because it kind of gets to the heart of what storytelling and movies are all about, and we tend to be celebrating, having faith and believing in something, and the person who is skeptical, who doubts that this is true, it is indeed almost always the sort of party pooper, bad guy character, or person who has lost their soul or whatever. This one is I found interesting because it does seem to me that across the board it's pretty rare to see the person who is, as Peg said, skeptical or a critical thinker portrayed in a positive light, and it has something to do with maybe the nature of storytelling and wanting to celebrate imagination, and the child who believes in unicorns or whatever. The person in that story who tells them that unicorns don't exist, that person is evil and should be destroyed or will get their comeuppance, whereas the child, surely in the story, will find that unicorns are real. They are very, very real. So that's an interesting one to think about, especially if you consider yourself a skeptical person or a critical thinker. You may be a little disappointed to see that the stories always seem to be against you, but I suppose the real heart of it is they're against the cynical people, sort of burnt out people who no longer believe in anything. I think that's the type of character that is usually being punished or portrayed as not a person to admire in such cases. Let's move on now to number 8 from Multicore, I believe that would be pronounced. I hate this one. I have a plan, but you have to trust me. Then proceeds to not tell the plan at all, leaving everyone in the dark for no reason until the minute before the plan starts. Now this one, I'm sad to say, I have two minds of this one. I think it is, and I've mentioned this in a previous video, that there is something about storytelling where you almost cannot have a scene where they spell everything out in advance before it happens, because it's so undramatic. The exception, of course, is the sort of heist film where there is the, by now, stereotypical planning everything out. So, okay, here's the plan. Now, that's a different kind of a thing, because what they intend to do is subvert that plan and have that everything not go according to plan later on. So in a way, they're setting you up for the surprise of, oh my goodness, things didn't go the way they said they were going to go. Anytime that there is a plan that will succeed, I feel like it's too undramatic to reveal that plan in advance, and so you do find, almost by necessity, these characters saying, look, I'll explain everything later. There's no time for that. We need to get to the blah, 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 or whatever, There is something about the sort of revealing things just before the audience needs to see it transpire on screen. There's a sort of a necessity there. But I can see where it is frustrating, where you're like, well, why didn't they just tell them? There are times where it totally makes no sense at all. Let's move on now to number 9. This one from CLICHÉS Markadopoulos. That's a Greek name I'm not familiar with. When character A needs to convince character B to change their mind at a crucial moment late in the story, the big breakthrough line is when character A says a word-for-word quotation of something character B had themselves said earlier in the story in an entirely different context. This one is something we've seen before, and in fact, I was just watching The Imitation Game, and that one has at least twice, if not three times, a quoted character quoted back and then quoted maybe a third time to sort of show the person learning from themselves almost, or maybe they forgot their own wisdom, that kind of thing, you know. So that one, I would say, is a bit of a cornball thing at this stage, but it worked well enough in The Imitation Game. Who am I to criticize? And again, a lot of these things continue to be used because they continue to work. And here's the last one for today, number 10. In pretty much every action movie, there's the part where the hero thinks they've defeated the villain, and just as they're starting to rejoice, the bad guy unexpectedly comes back for one last fight scene. This one from Aurora Palish Carpenter. The only thing I would disagree with is the word unexpectedly, because at this stage, it is not unexpected anymore. I think everybody knows, oh, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. They're going to come back, and there's going to be some sort of final climactic scene. And again, this one, the storytellers are kind of in a bind almost. They feel like they're obligated to give you 2, 3, sometimes even 4 climactic sequences. And sadly, yeah, they're kind of stuck to do a fake-out, seeming to have been defeated sequence so that we can get to the real, true defeat of the bad guy a moment later. Of course, in like slasher films, there's always the final fake out where we see the hand come out of the grave or whatever, and then they cut to black and roll credits. And so that's a variation in which truly the evil is never fully banished. But I think we have reached the end of my video. I'm going to add some cliched blushies to my rock and roller. No matter how tough he thinks he is belting out his song, he still gets a bad case of the blushies. Give me just one moment, my friends. I'm going to go grab my books so that I can say thank you to anyone who has supported me by getting them. Like Chibi, the book from which this pose originally came. You can see I used a slightly different color scheme that time. The Drawing Lesson, my graphic novel that teaches you how to draw, and the one that started it all, Mastering Manga. I really cannot say thank you enough to those of you who choose to support me by ordering any of those books. But I think it's time for me to lay down this pen. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and please leave more comments of other cliched storytelling things that you would like to see featured in another video. I'd love to keep this going. We can do video number 4 with your help. But it is indeed time to end this video. I want to thank you all for watching it. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.